Great. This does show us live on YouTube and Facebook. So I will just check and wait for that little notification, then we can get going.
Cool.
So I will just Great. I do see the notification alert, and I have started sharing this out. I know we're a couple minutes behind, so I want to go ahead and be mindful of that and just get this kicked off and started. I already see our Jefferson County Commissioner Tracy Kraft-Tharp also with us. Thank you for joining us. It also looks like Dave Carpenter is on here viewing us on our YouTube channel. So for those of you that are first-time viewers, if you're on Facebook, if you are on YouTube, we stream to both platforms when we go live, and we go live at least 2 times a week. Mondays, we provide updates from our city, and generally it's our mayor pro tem, or city councilors, and they kind of filter through every week with a different guest to give us their own perspective and some updates from their lens that are important for us to be aware of. And what I always encourage is engagement on our videos. So as Dave just went ahead and gave a quick comment, I'll pull the next one. And that was a quick good morning note as well to us. This is a feature that's available to you to give us any good morning pleasantries. You can also use this section for comments as you're listening along. Perhaps you may have questions on things that we don't even touch on that you wanted the Mayor Pro Tem to talk to us about. The comment section is your best friend for this. So feel free to, at any point during the broadcast, to type in there and we'll loop you into the queue. Now, make sure that you are already subscribed on our YouTube channel or like this Facebook page. One thing that I hear quite often is that sometimes when we post information, people don't see it in time. The best way to do that and beat out any random algorithm and all those changes is to not only like a page, but to follow it as well. When you follow, it gives you kind of priority when not only we go live, but we post content in the future, which takes me to my last comment before we really transition into the broadcast for today. And that is the video section here on our Facebook page or the library on our YouTube channel. That is where you can find previous broadcasts that we've held. And we've been doing these for about 3 years now. So there are a bunch of videos that you can hear updates on community happenings. You can also hear different businesses that have opened and come up in our community, and some other items that could help you navigate in your business. So when we were helping people transition in this weird world that we're in, we had a variety of different experts and speakers come to us and leverage some of those resources to adapt their businesses to thrive. And I quickly saw another comment from one of our past chairmen, Brian Head, giving a quick good morning message our way. So thank you so much for those of you that are tuned in. And thank you once again to Mayor Pro Tem David DeMott for being on here with me.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I know you stay busy between council and your family and your full-time job, so I want to maximize the window that I have with you and turn this really over to you to give us some light on some things that are coming up, what's on the horizon, if there are things between last Monday's broadcast until now that you feel compelled to share updates on. We'd love to hear them, and anything else, the floor is really yours.
Yeah, no, great. And we appreciate this format. I know that last week I listened to the mayor on here, and she gave you a lot of good updates. So I don't feel like you're lacking in knowing kind of what's going on. But just kind of if folks didn't hear, there's been a lot of movement in the city. Back last year, we did a pause on our water treatment plant and said we want to reevaluate. We wanted to reevaluate water rates, which we did reevaluate the water rates. We decreased and changed some of the tiers, if folks remember. And then we continued to work on the water plant, which there's still work to do. But tonight there is a special meeting. And I think Juliet was going to share the agenda for that back on, I think the 23rd of January at our last January meeting. we approved first reading to give funds in order to purchase the property on Westminster Boulevard. If you remember back, this all started as far as Westminster Boulevard officially when the former council in 2019 gave direction in order to take that property on Westminster Boulevard to do what was at the time the Water 2025 plan. I was not part of that vote, so I was actually out of town, and I had concerns about the plant. But to be fair, I didn't vote against it because I wasn't even there for the vote. I was actually in Milan on a business trip, which wasn't a bad place to be, except for Milan in July. If you've tried that out, it's warm, and air conditioning there is much different than here in the States. But and so that's kind of gone on, and there's been some legal things and challenges, or all the challenges that come around eminent domain and property when government uses property, which for me is something I prefer to avoid doing. But sometimes there's a reason that tool exists in order for municipalities to do things like build water plants. So with that being said, that finalized action happens tonight, and because of some timelines associated with some court rulings, we need to be able to move quickly on that. So there's a special meeting to do second reading so that those funds can be allocated. In short, there's a lot of money tied up already in that site, and there are things because of the legal proceeding and really the steps that were kicked off in 2019 that put us in a certain position with that property. If you were able to listen to the meeting, which I encourage folks to go back and listen to the 23rd at least, because they give a really good recap of options we've been evaluating over the last year, and why the site, which was for 2025, ended up being at this point our best option. Does that mean that if you had a clean slate, maybe that would be my choice? Maybe not, but we weren't handed a clean slate. We were handed, we have a existing infrastructure. We had a property that 6 members of council in 2019 decided that they wanted staff to acquire. So there's a lot of parts where you get tied up into what's the pros and cons of using this property versus something else. And because of some of those discussions, the majority of council, at least on the 23rd, voted that we want to move forward with that property and pay the price that we're being told we need to pay, and that will be finalized tonight. But if you go back to the 23rd, they give you a really good laydown of the options. And really what we came up with over the last 18 months is a different option that uses some of Water 2025. It changes what staff believes that we need in terms of water production, as far as treating the water, between what we thought we needed in 2025 and the new one, which saves us upwards of potentially up to $100 million, which that's no small amount of money. So, there's always going to be things you like and don't like about an option. But I guess my point being is I really encourage folks to listen to the hard work that's been done over the last 18 months between staff and council. Lots of questions. They've been very patient with us. They've answered all our questions. And, if you followed this topic since I've been on council since 2017 in my second term now, and this has definitely been one of those items that I ran on both times as far as our water and rates, and then it turned into a water plant. Up until the last 18 months, I was never satisfied that we got the kind of full conversation where we gave it a full look. I am, and anybody who's followed Westminster politics knows that as I said to the staff on the 23rd, I've been a pain in their ass. Excuse my language, but I know I have, because it was important. And I think that I'm very pleased, and I hope people take that for what I take it for. That staff did a really good job over the last 18 months, humoring us and going through this, and not just humoring us, but actually rethinking what we were doing and coming up with something that saves ratepayers $100 million. That's, and it sets us up for a sustainable future that is a site that they can be flexible with, because as you probably also know, there's a lot of state and federal regulations that we have no control over. We have to have a site in the future that allows us to accommodate whatever might come down the road. And for the things I don't like about the site at Westminster Boulevard, I will say that it's a flexible site that gives us plenty of space, and allows us a good future with safe, clean drinking water. So that's probably the biggest thing we have going on tonight.
Mm-hmm.
We also have a study session, which is typically what we normally would have on this Monday. As you know, we have 2 study sessions and 2 council meetings throughout the month. I believe we're going over right-of-ways with Google, so we'll see what that is. We have a handful of executive sessions about different topics. You can at least see the title of those if you go look at our agenda for tonight. And then we've been, as a council, been really good working with our clerk, so at least people know when those meetings end, so they know how long we were talking, because we felt that was important to be reflected in our minutes, so that folks at least know, hey, they were there till 10 o'clock or they were there till 1 in the morning. The other things kind of going on in the city, which I know the mayor touched on, obviously Mark Freitag has really immersed himself in the job, and he's doing really well. And I've heard a lot of good feedback about his leadership so far. He still has a lot to learn about Westminster, things where he came from in Wisconsin, where, not everything was done the same. They have different challenges there than we do. So he has a lot of work cut out for him, even from, where our water comes versus where their water came from. So he's learning. I think, he has the process underway to get a new chief of police. They closed that process a couple weeks back. I know they're in the phase now of narrowing down I think it was 36 candidates who put in for that job. They will then go through a lot of different panels and different things to continue to narrow that down. I think what I heard realistically is probably May or June we'll know who our new chief of police is. Really excited about that. That is certainly something that council put as a priority for whoever got that city manager job. And there was the decision to hold off on that until we hired a new city manager. And I do think that was the right thing to do. We wanted to, get that person the ability to decide who their chief is, because that's a really important job that works directly with our city manager. So that's a lot. Hopefully, folks are paying attention, but no shortage of things going on in Westminster for us to focus on as a council, for sure.
Absolutely. And I, at one point, I believe your strategic plan kind of was also discussed. I think that was at last week's meeting. Were there any highlights that you wanted to share with our group in particular?
No, thanks for bringing that up. It was, so you do so folks know how we do it. Typically after an election year, we do a bigger strategic plan. There was a lot of really deep evaluation into our mission and plan and what we're doing as a city with the amount of turnover we had after the last election. So I think that the plan we had from last year is this year in between elections typically is kind of a touch base. I don't think that you'll see a lot of big change. It was more we making the mark. There were some ideas brought up. And the other thing is it allows people to lobby the council, and if maybe they had something that didn't get in there. There were a couple of ideas that were put forward, nothing too wildly out of what we've been doing. I anticipate in the next month or so that we would get some of those things brought back to us if staff thinks there's a workable solution. I know for me, I really continued on the public safety, which, that's kind of the world I'm very interested in, making sure that we support our safety, both police and fire, so that they can do the job, as well as keep, the public safety for folks. And so I really made a push about traffic control. And I feel like if you've driven anywhere in the metro area recently, that people seem to think that there are no rules anymore. And to me, I get a lot of complaints about that from the public as well. So I did really push on, like, how do we start making a measurable difference in that area? We did talk, some of that flows into some of the things we talked about how do we address, like, auto theft. I know that the state legislator has at least, listened to the public from what we heard the last election cycle at state elections. And so I think some of that changes and maybe necessarily isn't going to make us have to take action as a city, where before we were talking about should we as a city ways to be, have more accountability around things like auto theft. But that general concept still is there. Are there things from the police perspective that maybe as a municipality we could do that will encourage folks not to break the law in our city. So I got to wave my hand. I have this light that I'm behind my monitors, and it always turns off because it doesn't see me moving.
That is okay. I know that you always try and weave in some conservative measures to help in your home and in your car and everything. So we get it. You're not just sitting in the dark. Thank you for that quick update. There was a quick question that came through from Dave Carpenter while we were giving an update around our strategic plan items that were discussed. I believe it's somewhat of a random question, but we are encouraging that for anyone that's on here with us, if it's a topic that we haven't touched on, you can still ask us a question around it. And Mayor Tim DeMott will do his best to answer that. I do also see Heather on here with us. Thank you for joining us, Heather. So Dave's question is it too early to know if or what Westminster Boulevard improvements may be performed as part of the new water site development? It seems a minimum would be to extend the bike lanes and add turn lanes and CNGs.
Don't hold me to this yet as far as what I mean. There are improvements that will have to be made on Westminster Boulevard because of development. What they are yet, I don't think that we're quite there to know what. I've heard, some ideas around what they'll have to do in order to do that, but I certainly appreciate being reminded that that's something that we should look at. So we're holistically looking at the project and figuring out ways to make sure that we're looking at the whole thing as far as what does it do to traffic and everything else that goes over there. I know that it's been at least talked about, but it probably hasn't been the priority yet. But certainly not too early to start discussing it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dave, for that question. Mayor Pro Tem DeMott, one of the questions that had come up this would have been maybe over a year ago now, and I just re-sparked my memory whenever Dave was asking about roads, but so Sheridan, as you are aware, has had some construction going on, particularly at the the overhead ramp that's leading to Highway 36 and others. And it was asked, I think the last time it was asked was, why were they doing why were they doing it at the time that they were doing it? And I think the question has continued to linger and, when are they going to finish that project and what does that look like? My understanding was that we had very little involvement in that as a city, but I'll turn that over to you to kind of give an update if you have anything on your end.
And you're talking about the by the new downtown, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. So it would be like if you're headed north on Sheridan, right past from that 88th intersection to all the way to that next stoplight.
So that we actually have been very involved in that as a city. In that is actually to be able to connect folks to the RTD station next, and so that they don't have to cross Sheridan. So basically, folks don't know what they're building is an underpass underneath Sheridan Boulevard, and there'll be a lot of improvements on Sheridan Boulevard for that. And so that gives folks that live in the downtown a safe way to get over to the bus station. If you don't know, also, I know there's at least some of us who are very big advocates to get our rail because we've been paying for it since, we voted on it as taxpayers in the early 2000s, I think 2004. And, but we do have one of the busiest, I think we have the busiest right there on Sheridan Boulevard and 36, that bus station. And so that's the bus rapid transit that a lot of people are able to go down the 36 corridor, whether they're going up towards Boulder or they're going to downtown. And so with all the folks that are living over in the downtown, we need a better way for them to get over to that to the bus station. And so that's really what that is. It's going to be a really nice underpass between the bus station so that you don't have to cross over Sheridan, which that's a really busy part of the road. It's dangerous to cross. And so in terms of timing, I know that we've been told, I'll be honest, I apologize, I don't remember off the top of my head. I don't want to give false hope, but I know that they've at least moved on to, they started on what would be the southbound part of Sheridan, and they're moving on to the northbound side of Sheridan. So they're making their way across what will be Sheridan, and I know that that's a difficult challenging, frustrating thing to try over right now. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I promise it's going to be a good thing for us as far as our transportation options over there.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for answering that. And as I shared, this had come up before. And so I'm so glad that we clarified because that was not how it was described to us before.
There's definitely a partnership there between the city and CDOT. And
Yeah.
I don't remember all the different grants and funding mechanisms we used, but we were able to leverage quite a different funding mechanisms because it's a pretty pricey project.
Okay.
And that's been being worked on since, gosh, I'm almost the whole time that I've been here. I think we've been talking about getting that funded and moving it forward.
Mm-hmm. Well, I do want to throw this curveball your way, and this is like a wild curveball, but I know the answer to this, and I want people to be aware. So you guys as counselors and elected aren't necessarily bombarded over this. But there is recent news that there is a lawsuit against the city of Westminster for a downtown office project that has fallen through, is what it was worded. Is that something that you all can speak to as elected officials?
Anything that's going to get into liability or lawsuit or anything, I would have to divert people to the city attorney's office. That's certainly, there are times where council has to get involved in decisions for various reasons. What I would say is anything like that, council would be made up to date on, but very likely we wouldn't be able to speak on because anything that's in any kind of open investigation or litigation or anything like that, council, we need to make sure that we're letting the right people talk about it. And in that case, I would, direct you to the city attorney's office, or the city manager's office would potentially be able to help with any information that they could share.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you so much. I just wanted to clarify that because I know sometimes we end up getting questions, and when there are those legal things, it throws a little bit of a curveball for folks to understand why you don't necessarily speak on it, right?
Yeah, no, certainly. And I mean, it's always one of those things for us when we get asked questions on a lot of different sensitive topics where we have to remind ourselves to pause because we're so used to answering questions. Maybe we do have information, but sometimes we can't share it for whatever reason.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also, it looks like, a new water portal that the city has created for online residents and consumers to be able to monitor their water consumption and maybe receive emergency leak alerts via emails and a whole dashboard and everything like that. I'm sure that was led by a lot of the conversation you were speaking to earlier around this water discussion over several months.
Yep, that's absolutely right. This actually was supposed to be launched, I believe, last summer. And really the idea is, like, if you think about in terms, the example I used in the past when we started talking about this and what we as council people would like to see out of this, and this goes back to before the last election, we talked about, the portal and being able to give people real-time statistics. And some of this is made available by the fact that we replaced all the meters in the city. And with those modern meters, we're able to make a more modern portal for our users. And so, like, if you think in terms of cell phones, again, you can see like how much usage you have, right? So you can set up alerts even that say, hey, you're coming close to your limit, like say if you don't have an unlimited data account. So some of those topics were brought up when we talked about what this is going to be. I actually think that's one of the things on our agenda to go over that tonight, is to show us what capabilities are going to be in there, and that'll help people A, manage some budget, but B, also maybe think about conservancy. And I know that's very important to a lot of folks. But it is pretty exciting to be able to know that you can do that. I don't know, like when my family switched to solar power, one of the cool things with solar is we can see on our, on my cell phone how much solar or how much energy we're using, and like how much we're using from our solar versus the grid from Excel. And so being able to see some of that stuff makes you really evaluate like what you're doing. And I know with things getting tighter and tighter, specifically with Excel, I know a lot of people have been complaining. I was joking the other day that we were able to help relieve some pressure with water rates, and Excel made up for that, unfortunately. So with the different economic pressures in the world today, but that's kind of what it's going to be. Is I don't know exactly because I haven't seen it yet, But I do know that I think that's going to be a big value add to our ratepayers so that they can be able to see what their real usage is. Like you said, be able to have a little bit more real time alert as far as a leak, because like right now, if you've ever got one of those notices, it comes out in the mail. It's like, hey, a week ago you were using a lot of water, you might have a leak.
Yeah.
Luckily, in my case, it was more than likely a teenager who forgot to turn the hose off. But if imagine if you had a real leak and it went that long. So it's being able to use technology to address some of the concerns and challenges that people have as ratepayers, or we have as a city, is really what I hope you see out of that project. And I'm pretty excited about seeing it and it going live. Last thing I'd add, I told you that was paused. The reason it was paused and not rolled out last year is when council decided to change the water rates and change the tier system as far as how big the tiers were. That's a lot of work for staff to do, and we weren't able to both adjust our systems and meet the need to finish that project. So it got a pin put in it, and we decided that the water rate adjustment was the most important thing at the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for that background around it and the updates. And you're spot on when you were sharing the just in time makes a difference when you have a leak going in. I know that was addressed as concerns by your water division with businesses that had a lot happen, and they opened up and you see this bill and it was by the thousands. I mean, it was just like bonkers. So this hopefully helps with knowing that there's something, and let's try and fix that as a business or as a resident that's here in Westminster.
Yep.
I don't see additional questions that have come through. Believe it or not, we are either killing it, Dave, or we put them to sleep. So
the latter.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to bring up, Julia, is just a reminder to folks, if they watch this, that on every third Tuesday of the month, I do a town hall, Policy and Pilsner, and it's really not so much a town hall format as a come hang out with us, support a local business. We're at Kokopelli's every third Tuesday at 6:30. We'll be there till 8:30, or they kick us out. And it's a good opportunity to come and just have a conversation with either other people in the community, me. A lot of times the mayor will come by, some other council members sometimes come by. Actually, Commissioner Kraft Tharp has been known to drop by from time to time, although I haven't seen her for a while, so maybe we'll see her on the 21st. But a good opportunity, and I like to, wherever I can, remind folks that I do that. And I've been doing that since before I was elected, and I think it's just a good opportunity to sit down with folks and have a conversation about whatever concerns they have or ideas they have. Last time actually we had some ideas, somebody, and I passed this on to our events people, and Rich Newman in Parks and Rec, that they thought we should do a chocolate event, because we really like you do beer tastings and wine tastings. Why not a chocolate tasting? I'm like, well, I'll at least drop the idea. So just a good opportunity. I hope folks that sometime in the year join us and check out Kokopelli and hang out.
And is that at 6 o'clock that you usually?
6:30.
6:30.
Yep.
Yeah, I couldn't remember. It's been a while since I've dropped in on you as well on that. So thanks for that reminder. I've included it in the comment section for those of you that are trying to frantically write things down. They're always on the third Tuesday of every month, and the next one is on February 21st at 6:30 p.m. And it looks like Dave Carpenter has attended these. He shared that they have been incredibly valuable and fun. So love that you support our local businesses by hosting this and allow that back and forth transparency. I think we can wrap this up. I know we're slightly over on time, and I appreciate you being present, being receptive to some of these questions, and being a voice for our business community. And I thank everyone for tuning in. Yeah.
Thanks for what you do.
Of course. If you're watching this on replay, give us a hashtag replay. If you thought of a question you didn't want to type publicly, you can DM the page. We'll get it over to our Mayor Pro Tem to be able to answer that for you. And whether you watch this in the afternoon, evening, or on a weekend, thank you for tuning in, staying informed, staying engaged. That makes sure that you are as up to date as possible when things are coming up, and you can speak with the knowledge and power of the information that you have on hand. So enjoy the rest of your morning, Mayor Pro Tem, and to everyone else, thank you so much.
Thanks, Julia. See you later.